the file folder title for Senzo Tanaka. So I just want to reach out to everybody and let everybody know that Senzo Tanaka is indeed a real person. He did indeed live in the area that Frank said he did. And there is one thing that I wanted to point out to everybody.
It says he represents the Tanaka clan. You don't look like Tanaka.
Shidoshi Tanaka trained me.
Hey guys, got an interesting video for you today. Now, one complaint when it comes to Frank Dux and his claims are, where's the evidence? Well, we do have some evidence. Senzo Tanaka, we have legitimate evidence, and there's no disputing the fact that he's a real guy, but what's more interesting is his actual background and history, and even his wife, which we're going to get into. Now, my guest is Adam McKinley, and we've had a history, and we'll talk about that in the video, but anyway, look, for you Frank Dux supporters out there, this is like the smoking gun as far as like Tanaka goes. For you people who aren't fans of Frank Dux, well, minimum you'll have to admit, boy, that information that McKinley uncovered and unearthed, really convenient to support Frank's lie if you think Frank's lying about Senzo Tanaka. But anyway, very interesting video. Was a long time coming. I first heard about McKinley talking about these files before, and I was like, maybe he's got them, maybe he don't, but they're real. And I'm also going to share an interesting theory I have about Frank Dux in general, so stay until the end. But anyway, please help support the channel. Please help support the effort. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, help get it out there. I didn't think I would ever get you on the show, Adam. And
For sure.
There's many reasons. And this is actually, I'm glad I got you on, because this is an example for the martial arts community that we are actually friendly and collaborating on a video first. A couple of reasons, but one specific reason in particular. But just to catch the audience up to speed, we have an interesting history. So I first seen you months ago, maybe almost a year ago, on a video with Frank Dux, where he said I lacked ethics. And of course, you thought of the same of me as well. You and your buddy Johnny Sig.
I mean, there's a guy out there named Viking Samurai or something. He's inviting everybody on the show who could badmouth me, but he's never once spoken to me, which shows you his level of ethic. He'd go out there, ruin my hard-earned reputation.
Okay. So basically, you thought I was anti-Frank Dux. And the funny thing, because he said I lacked ethics, I really wanted him to get on the channel. I really wanted to meet him and get him on the channel and show him that I'm a fair guy and that I actually don't lack ethics. And I pursued that, and I got kind of close to like some of the people associated with him. And the funny thing is that he specifically told me, Frank Dux himself, that you need to talk to Adam McKinley. And he gave me your number, and I reached out to you. And to be perfectly honest, you were quite abrasive, which I found interesting. Kind of insulting in a way. I don't know if you want to tell your perspective of that.
So basically, like, I'll fully admit, like, I was definitely abrasive. You know, it's kind of funny because at that time when I had met you, I had kind of been going to war with a couple of like Frank's online enemies at the time. And it was just one of those situations where you didn't want him to get hurt. You know, you wanted to represent him in a good way. You didn't want him to, you know, have horrible things said about him, or you know, have him go on a show or a platform that would kind of badmouth him. So, you know, initially I thought maybe that's what you were doing, you know, and I didn't know any better at that time. Again, I was just kind of hearing it from Frank's mouth, and I was kind of, again, just trying to settle disputes and kind of defend Frank. You know, there's definitely a lot of things I don't think people understand on both sides of the platform. So yeah, man, I mean, it was abrasive, and I was definitely, you know, horrible to you. And I think that it was trash, honestly.
Oh, I mean, I respect that you admit that and let me know. And so basically your perspective is you literally thought I wanted to get Frank on to make him look bad. And that's where you were coming from.
That's essentially what I had thought. I knew that a lot of people out there were very questionable about Frank's past. I mean, let's face it, we're all martial artists. We've all heard the stories.
Meet Frank Dux, the first American to win the Kumite, a deadly martial arts competition where the only rule is to win.
We've all heard the debates. And I think that initially my abrasiveness towards you came from my trying to actually defend Frank. And I think that is now very important for both of us to kind of conversate with, because it was never you. I guess that I was just assuming that, you know, because of what I had been dealing with, because of various weeks before that you were probably just going to do the same thing, you know?
Yeah. And Frank even told me you were one of the guys. He had a couple guys in his camp, but one of the guys that tried to talk him out of going on the show, which, you know, the funny thing is, like, I was so close to getting him. And then about within a few days or a week of me actually finally landing this interview, he said, well, I'm not going to do the show. And I'm just like, what? I like wasted all this time and energy and you're not going to do the show? Because in my mind, I know I'm going to be very fair to him. I'm just like, this is in your best interest in a lot of ways, even though you may not realize it.
Without doubt, I know now that you're a very fair person. I think that everybody can clearly see that, you know, you have all sides of the platform on here, on your show. And I think it's great that you're giving everybody kind of that platform to speak for themselves, because I think it's really hard for the audience and everybody listening in to make their own assumption. You know what I'm saying? Because it's
exactly. And the ironic thing is, now that I've been fair and got his side and some of his guys, people kind of have the perception where they might have thought like you were, like, I'm against Frank Dux. And now they kind of have the assumption like I'm just like drinking the Kool-Aid and I'm so pro Dukes. But it's like, the funny thing is, look, man, I still get along fine. In fact, I just talked to Alan Goldberg. I get along fine. I love Alan Goldberg. You know, I mean, I like Don Wilson. It's like, dude, I can be friendly with both sides.
And that's what I think is really important about this conversation, is that people need to realize that these decades old debates, they need to stop. They're not helping the communities that are coming into it now, the generations that are getting into the martial arts now. It's kind of, in my opinion, kind of trickled over onto the community and kind of become such a wide spectrum situation. And it's just really sad, man. I think that there's so much debate, there's so much negativity going on that it makes me wonder if, like, all of these traditional masters that are responsible for all of our art forms would have ever wasted their time arguing over the things that we see people arguing about. And it's ridiculous, man. You know,
they didn't have like social media like we do these days. It's too easy where somebody from like another part of the world can attack somebody else that they've never met, which is an interesting world we live in. But let me ask you this, man, like, how and why did you even end up meeting Frank Dux initially?
So crazily enough, so not a lot of people probably know this, but growing up, like, I loved reading Black Belt magazine, and I kind of grew up in kind of a ghetto area outside of Reno called Sun Valley. So there wasn't a lot that we had as kids, so we kind of, just really gravitated towards these Black Belt magazines. And, I read about Stephen Hayes, and you read about, Frank Dux and all these, ninja masters of the 80s. And I think that all of us kind of have a love for it, even if you say you don't. Like, anybody that grew up during that decade, you gravitated towards it. It's very much the reason. It's very much the reason why I'm here today, I think. But what's crazy enough is, years later, I decide that, hey, I'm going to go ahead and try to inspire people. So I'm going to post videos online. I'm going to go ahead and make like inspirational videos and just, show people that, hey, a 40-year-old man can do these things.
Which is amazing. Some of the stuff you do, very explosive. I mean, you look like a dude who's still in college with these movements, man. So it is inspiring.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You as well, man, like with the Van Damme kicks and stuff. I mean, very, very cool
thanks. And yeah, with the Van Damme kicks, obviously a lot of those were done in Bloodsport based on Frank Dux, which is why he's always in this discussion.
And that's what's really important, again, about this discussion too, is, for example, the hate for Frank, with or without your opinion about Frank, with or without your opinion to hate Frank, he is responsible for inspiring millions of people. He is responsible for making people get up off of the couch and do something positive.
I guess what I'm really proud of is that it isn't a story about violence. It's not, it's a story about human beings and faith and about determination and respect. And that's what I've run my life by, and that's what this movie's about.
He is responsible for giving people that energy and that vitality and that consistency. You cannot take that away from the man, no matter what you believe. It is not a debate. Everybody knows that everybody was watching Bloodsport. And if you were a martial artist at that time, if you were a kid growing up at that time, if you were a teenager, you loved that movie. That movie alone, more than any movie, in my opinion, is responsible for the martial arts being such a wide spectrum situation in this country. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of funny. It is that one movie, and it didn't matter if like another guy made 10 movies or 20 movies. It just, those all combined didn't have the impact that that one movie had.
Did it, man. And that's what's so, interesting about this whole Frank Dux concept is people need to give credit when it's due. And I'm even responsible for this, out of my anger and, out of my, my crap, my own personal crap. Like, I went after Frank as well. And, I said things that were ridiculous because you need to give this guy credit for the things that he's done for this community. You need to actually just allow the guy just to be him. I think it's really important for people to understand yet again, and I'll say this again, these masters that are responsible for these art forms that we're doing today, they weren't concerned having these debates. They were more interested in working on themselves, building themselves, becoming better. It wasn't about, hey, I'm looking at this guy and I don't like what I see, or hey, this guy's starting an organization and it says this or that and I don't agree with it. You should be concerned with yourself, with your personal training. It should be about you. It shouldn't be about anybody else. And I think that that's a very lost traditional idea that a lot of people aren't doing anymore, and it's just very sad.
Adam, it is sad, but I'll add to that. So if you are looking at other people, then you should do it for the positive, right reasons of like, what are they doing better, and not have the ego to just think, no, I'm better than everybody, but look, like, what are they doing better? Are they inspiring me? What can I gain from them, as opposed to tearing them down to make yourself feel better?
Right. And unfortunately in this community, that's almost really impossible to do because of association. See, in my opinion, and from what I've seen and what I can say other people have talked to me about, is that you're no longer really considered anything by skill set. You're considered everything by association. And that's the problem. Is if I felt the need to associate with Frank because this guy was one of my heroes growing up and I wanted to learn from him, I wanted to see for myself and experience it without anybody telling me anything, I wanted that personal experience, that shouldn't be a judgment, that shouldn't take away from me in the community. I think that people need to realize that as martial artists, we shouldn't be so much worried about the affiliation as we are worried about what is this guy bringing to the table? What is his skill set? Is he able to show he has a skill set? These are things that are being overlooked. There's these huge groups like the BSMA, like Don Raleigh, that run these horrid Facebook pages where they're just bashing people. And what I find interesting is those guys are on the McDojo websites, like the Bujinkan guys. And what I think is just so crazy is Don Raleigh's bashing everybody he possibly can, but he himself is a spectacle. And so it just doesn't make any sense to me why the negativity.
It's like the pot calling the kettle black in a lot of ways, you know. And you said he even said stuff about me and my channel, which I don't follow those forums like you. What do you say about me?
Dude, so he said that basically you'll never be able to be considered relevant because of your association with Frank Dux, because you had him on your show and you allowed Frank to speak on behalf of Senzo Tanaka being real and going against Bisping. And I think, again, this is the group of people, this irrational group of people that can't show any skill sets themselves, that have no actual, like, they have nothing to actually show, and yet they're bashing people and going after them. And it's so bizarre that there's that many Kool-Aid drinking people that belong to the Bujinkan and that they follow this Raleigh character because it's just trash, man.
Yeah, the irony, if he's questioning like the legitimacy of anybody, even my channel, just because I have Frank Dux on and I'm being fair and balanced and letting him tell his stories, it's like the irony is like these guys are fake ninjas, right? But they're not even good fake ninjas. Because if they were good fake
They're
ninjas, they
not.
could do stuff you see in movies. Like they could do all these cool flips, they could do these cool spin kicks. But if you're gonna be a fake ninja, at least be like a good, impressive fake ninja, you know?
Sure. Sure. So Raleigh sent out a challenge to me, like he likes to do to people. And I went ahead and I accepted the challenge, but he would not agree to a MMA match or a kickboxing match with me. It can't be fists. The only way that Raleigh will agree to meet me in combat is if I choose a wooden weapon of my choice and we can only have one round.
I already did
This
that
is
with David Richardson.
That's what's so bizarre, is that he thinks that that's something considered relevant. And let's not mention the fact that him and Phil Elmore literally for a week now tried to convince me they were going to ruin my career if I talked about Don Rowley and the letters that you had on the last episode.
Interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
literally have messages going back and forth from this guy telling me they're going to try to ruin my career and my association with Sean Kanan, which made me laugh because, again, this is coming from like ninjas that eat potato chips and sit on the couch and like are totally like out of shape. And it's just ridiculous, bro.
I
Like,
mean, I would like to see them try to ruin your career. I mean, who's even going to take them serious, you know? I mean,
well, that's my point, is I welcome them to try, because there's nobody in this community that's worth relevance that considers them anything. These people are nobodies. And Phil Elmore, the only reason he has relevance is because of BSMA. And he himself, I mean, I think he's like 350 pounds, man. And he's sitting there and he's trying to attack other people for their technique. And I'm thinking, I don't even think you could kick above your waist.
I mean, he might have trouble getting off the couch. I mean, who knows? But real quick though, Adam, you were mentioning you were posting videos for inspiration, and I think this led to how you met and got to know Frank Dux, which we didn't discuss yet.
So basically, I got to know Frank because he reached out to me and he said, "Hey, that was a really nice kick." And bro, like, it blew my mind. Like, Frank Dux reached out to me on my video and was like, "Hey, that was a really nice kick." You know, anybody else could have reached out to me and said something.
That's a great compliment. But real quick, Adam, real quick, did you tag him? Did you hashtag Bloodsport? Like, how do you think he even came? It's not like he's, you know, watching a lot of people could get his attention. Like, how did you think he ran across it?
He ran across it by chance, because
just by
I
chance.
simply I posted it to the martial arts community or the martial arts society on Facebook. And I think that was kind of a predominant group in Facebook. And so he found me there. But it was just bizarre. And I was like sitting there watching like Netflix, and like Frank Dux was talking to me. I even had to look at it like, is this real? You know,
Sure,
like, is this the real?
A lot of people got fake profiles.
Bro, it was crazy, and I was just honored. And so I told him right away, man, like, that I, you know, was so thankful for his, you know, comment. And, you know, I mean, I did whatever I could to talk to the guy. Again, I grew up reading about him.
But just for the record, prior to that comment, or even after the comment, you were very skeptical. It's like you didn't really think he was legit. You probably went with the narrative thinking he was a fraud, right?
So here's how I'll say that. Like, I grew up believing the guy was absolutely legit, but I think at that time it was a lot easier to not question people. You know what I'm saying? Because
if they put in a movie saying based on a true story, just go with it. Oh yeah, that's true, man. You know?
Well, and I think I think most people did that, especially in that decade. It's bizarre, man. Like, it's just the whole thing. Like, again, being able to meet the guy, you know, and being able to conversate with the guy, to be able to do anything with the guy. Like, it was huge to me, because again, I read about this guy and watched him in Bloodsport. He was the inspiration for why I went outside and did aerial kicks every day. How can I not want to talk?
Of course, Van Damme, who portrayed him, obviously.
Bro, but like, I believed all the negativities, because that was kind of the average thing that people believed. You know, you had people like the Pinkman on YouTube that was making videos, and you had all these videos. And at that time, the internet was there, so people could fact check. There was several reasons why I think, sure, there was that question. But again, when I got to know him, I can honestly say that he laid to rest a lot of things that I did believe were fraudulent.
Interesting.
You know, there are a lot of, here's the thing. there are a lot of things I cannot confirm for Frank. I can't confirm that he was in the CIA. I can't confirm that he was, you know, he went to Japan and he fought in the Kumite. Those aren't things that I can do. However, I can prove, because of your last episode with Michael Bisping, that Senzo Tanaka is absolutely a real person. And I can absolutely prove that his wife, Saya Tanaka, is absolutely a real person, and was able to actually get this. And I want to show this to everybody. This is from Stephanie Bayless, the archives director at National Archives. And as you guys can see here, this is the case file. So if anybody wants to check on it, they're welcome to. You can also acquire these packets for about $300 a piece if you feel you want to reach out and do that. But this is, again, the file folder title for Senzo Tanaka. So I just want to reach out to everybody and let everybody know that Senzo Tanaka is indeed a real person. He did indeed live in the area that Frank said he did. And there is one thing that I wanted to point out to everybody. When we got these files, I did not let Frank see these files, okay?
Sure.
When he initially came here and he stayed here for the week that he did and we trained, we asked him some questions, and they were kind of questions that we felt we needed to ask him because we were able to confirm in these packets, okay? One of the questions we asked him was, did Senzo Tanaka have any scars that kind of stood out to him? And one thing that was really particular that really stood out to me is Frank seemed to know that this Senzo Tanaka in this packet, without knowing I had this packet, had a scar on his thumb from when he used to draw his sword or his katana.
Interesting.
And so Frank actually knew that. That was something we did not even have to even push towards. We asked him, and he specifically mentioned the scar on the thumb. So if Frank is lying, then why do I have a packet coming from National Archives that's been okayed by the National Archives director that's stating that this man is indeed real? And why was Frank able to pick out a scar on that particular place on the body? That seems
Real quick,
again,
Adam, that is very interesting. But what does what does like that packet say about him? Like that, does it say what he did for a profession? Does it say like anything?
So it kind of. So here, I'll show you guys, we'll fan through it a little bit. So it kind of just goes over how he kind of came into the country. He indeed did spend some time in prison for murder. There's some really interesting stuff in here. It is speculated in here. And also you can, again, reach out to this woman and she will confirm that it is believed that they think that Senzo Tanaka was in fact an agent. They cannot confirm it, but there are reasons to believe that he actually wasn't the person spending time in prison, that in fact he was going back and forth to Japan. What's interesting is during his incarceration, his wife, Saya, was going back and forth from Japan like constantly, like I would say 10 times a year. And so I really found this interesting. Now, upon looking at Saya Tanaka, which is Senzo's wife here, again, this is coming from Stephanie Bayless, the same woman. It does talk about her lineage and does actually link her to a predominant samurai clan. Wow. Going back to, I think it said something to the effect of the 1600s. And again, this can all be confirmed. This isn't something that I am just telling you. There's a reason it's wrapped in ribbon and stamped. I haven't taken this or done anything with this or edited this at all. It is straight from the archives. And if there's any question or debate about this, you yourself can actually reach out and get this packet.
Real quick, Adam, is there a picture of Senzo in his packet?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I have
let's see him, man.
Senzo. So I have a couple of younger pictures of Senzo, but here is a really cool. This right here is Senzo when he's a little bit older. And we were also able to kind of confirm the signatures, and we took it to a specialist, and they are indeed the confirmed signatures that Frank was linking himself to. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as like the Tanaka lineage. Let me show you another one here. And again, I just want everybody to know it's kind of faded. I don't know if you guys can really see that very well.
Yeah, we could see that.
That's Senzo when he's a lot older. But it talks about, I mean, there's everything in here. I have everything from his lawyers to his application for permit to re-enter the United States right here. So
That's really cool, man. Let me, Adam, real quick. I have an interesting theory that I was going to throw out there eventually.
Sure.
What if, and in a weird way, this can make like almost everybody right. What if there's like some weird Mandela effect going on with Dukes? So like Don Wilson and Alan Goldberg could rewrite because in that version, like he really is a fraud. But there's a Mandela effect where like, you know, this stuff like appears where it's not just like there was a guy named Senzo. It's like, well, they kind of tie him and his wife to possibly being spies and, so, you know, him maybe being incarcerated and then just like tied to the samurai clan.
I want to say this. So I definitely believe in that Mandela effect stuff. I follow it like religiously. I believe that it's absolutely happening in the world. Like you can call me crazy, like whatever. I'm fascinated with it.
Sure.
But what's really interesting about this whole situation is when I got this packet and I was able to actually look at it for myself and then ask him questions. One of the other things, and I wanted to bring this to note, is Frank seemed to know that he worked at a cemetery.
Really?
And that was something that was something Frank said. And then when I received this packet, it does indeed confirm he worked at a cemetery. So these are the types of things that I want to point out to people. If you think that Senzo Tanaka is not a real person, it's not debatable, because I have these right here and anybody else can reach out to the National Archives and receive these. Again, this is not up for debate. He was a real person. I have his records right in front of me. I have his wife's records. I think it's important to note that even with the gaps, Frank knows an awful lot about this guy and knows an awful lot about him that only somebody that would have a personal experience with this person would have. And so I think it's important to note that even when I can't confirm things for Frank, I cannot deny this.
No, exactly. I do want to just for fun play devil's advocate for a minute.
Sure.
Because, you know, people in the comments are going to say this, or people might even think it. I mean, hell, I thought it. This is the only reason I'm bringing it up. Somebody might say, well, maybe Frank got those documents and studied them and didn't tell you that he already had them, which is a possibility, right?
There's always that possibility. Okay. And that's always obviously an option. But again, being here with my wife, being that my wife worked, you know, for the United Nations, and she looked up Syrian terrorism for 5 years, and she has the ability to have, you know, to reach out to various connections to ensure whether or not people are actually valid people. I think it's important to note that no matter your speculation of Frank Dux, these are facts. These are things that cannot be debated. So if Frank is lying, he certainly seems to know an awful lot about this person personally, that only a person that knew this person, like had a friendship with this person, would actually know, like the thumb on the scar. That's something that it cannot be debated. That is a particular place. A scar could be anywhere. Most people aren't going to get thumbs on scars. That's just not debatable. And in my opinion, I think that everybody needs to agree that that's something that needs to be thought about. Like you can't debate that.
Yeah, that could be the smoking gun as far as Tanaka goes. And like I said, I do like to entertain the possibility of the Mandela effect, because that way, like, everybody kind of gets to be right, you know? It just so happens that now maybe Frank Dux isn't a fraud. Like, who knows, man?
I want to say this again. I'm not here to say that Frank is real, and I'm not here to say he's fake. I'm here to talk about my experience with him and talk about what it's like to be on both sides. And so, again, in my opinion, from this research, no matter how angry I was at Frank or I didn't agree with the way or his ethics, this is non-debatable. So it needs to be driven out of everybody's mind, even Michael Bisping at this point. I have mad respect for Michael Bisping. I love the guy. I've followed him. He's a great fighter. He's a great UFC guy. But this is not debatable.
Frank Dux gave the name of his ninja master as Tiger Tanaka. Who do you think taught James Bond how to be a ninja? Well, That character's name was Senzo the Tiger Tanaka.
Yeah, the Tanaka thing is very interesting. Real quick, Adam.
It's not debatable.
This is part of our chronological history too. So I had mentioned earlier, you thought I was against Frank Dux, and you were a little abrasive. And then later we did get a phone call, and you told me about these documents, and you were very excited. And we were actually going to share them on the channel months ago, And then like a little bit later, you had flipped, where you had turned against Dux and went on a couple of different podcasts. Now I think in one of them, I think you said that the opposite, right? Where Frank should have known certain things in the document, but he didn't.
Well, now I'm going to let's be specific about this. Now, there were other questions that were asked that he didn't have the answer for, that in my opinion he should have.
Okay.
So that's how I'm going to place this. Is I'm not going to call him a fake, because knowing what I know this far, that's not debatable. But I'm not going to say or verify whether or not he is or isn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have that ability. I can only tell you, again, my experiences with the person. I can't, however, tell you that he's indeed a martial artist. Like, the man is straight up like a martial artist. Like, if there's any question to whether or not like he does effective martial arts, that shouldn't be a question. He does do effective martial arts, far more effective than Bujinkan, far more effective than a lot of other ninjutsu styles out there. So again, if there's any question of these things, I mean, let that subside, because again, and this is for Michael Bisping, this guy is not a fake guy. He's a real guy, and it's been confirmed by literal National Archives. Like, it can't be debated.
Real quick, Adam, what did you gain or realize when you spent a week training with him? As far as like his martial arts go, and his knowledge and what he can
what's crazy. So this is what's crazy about Frank, is Frank has that ability to really like tell you something and to have you gravitate towards it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to call Frank a car salesman, but he has that same type of like ability to draw somebody in, and so it's the stories that he tells, and it's those things that he talks about. And what's really interesting is, even if you're listening to Frank tell a story and you're kind of like, I kind of question that story, he then does something like physically to show you that he's legit. And so what's crazy is, it's really hard to like get your head wrapped around whether or not he's a real guy or not. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always there's like, the guy literally barely like nicked my chin here, just showing me a technique. And like, this is no joke, for like 2.5 weeks, my jaw like ached, and he didn't even like barely touch it, bro. Like, he was just showing me like this simple technique, and it was like right here in this area, like right under my chin. And bro, like, all the things that he showed me were like, they were pretty groundbreaking, bro. I mean, even if I don't like the guy's ethics, I can't deny that the guy had some things that were impressive. And I'm not going to debate whether or not I'm a better martial artist today because of his tutelage. The guy taught me to be a better kicker. I think anybody can look at the time frames. You can see when he came to my house to now, that's been less than a year. And you can tell that I've upped my game. I've leveled up 5 times since then, just because I had the ability to learn from him. Again, and I'm not going to say again that I can verify that Frank Dux is legit. I can tell you, however, that I'm a better martial artist because I learned from him.
That's interesting. And you've been kicking for like already 20 years prior, and you upped your game like that quick.
Bro, look at the videos. I urge everybody to look at my platform. You can clearly see that my kicks, every one of them I do, are like doubled in efficiency, doubled in power, doubled in impact and speed because of his tutelage.
And that's the thing that always interested me the most. Like, not so much the past, but what does he have now of value? I mean, giving us Bloodsport and everything's always going to be valuable, right? But just in general, like, despite his exploits, whether you believe the Kumite or CIA secret man stuff or whatever, it's like, what can he show somebody like a martial artist and bring? And it sounds like something quite impressive if he got to teach or
really
coach somebody.
again, and I know that people saw me a few months back go out and we had it out, and Frank Dux and I don't like each other, and everybody's going to talk about that. But if I got to be honest, I'm going to be honest. I can't sit there and say I didn't learn anything from him, and I can't sit here and say I don't believe everything he says, because I have proof of one and proof of the other. I'm physically living it, and I have this non-debatable packet in front of me. And so it leads me to question, is really everything that he says really fake? And again, when he knows these things that only he could know, even with the things that I questioned him in that he didn't seem to know, they were things that, like, he's like, well, I can't remember, or, you know, like, I don't, you know, like he couldn't place it type things. But again, for a scar on a thumb, knowing that he got that scar, and I didn't know how he got the scar, but he knew how he got that scar from drawing his sword.
Yeah,
And
which
so
is cool, and it adds more to you know, Senzo's background as well as being like a samurai.
But here's the thing: National Archives doesn't know that he cut his hand with a sword. They know he had a scar, but that's crazy that Frank knew how it happened, and that Frank even knew that he had a scar on his thumb to begin with.
Yeah,
that's
that
crazy,
is quite
man.
interesting, man. That is pretty interesting. But basically, just to kind of summarize, so you were initially very pro Dukes, and you thought I was against him, and then you realize, like, okay, this guy's not against him. He's at minimum neutral. And then you kind of went the other way, where you were kind of anti-Dukes. And then because you thought I was pro-Dukes at that point, I remember we were going to do a podcast where it was going to be like you, Alan Goldberg, Don Wilson, maybe Sheldon Ledge, like whoever wanted to go on with you and trash Dukes. And I told you, just to be fair, just so this doesn't look like a hateful video directed at Dukes, I will try to defend him the best I can to act as a counterbalance. And then you were like, you didn't really want to do it based on that, but I only thought that would be fair. But then, so you went on other podcasts, which is fine. But basically, it kind of sounds like you're where I've been the whole time, where you're just a neutral guy, because you were really pro Dukes, and then you were anti Dukes, and now it's almost kind of like you're where I am.
So I'm going to go ahead and lead by example. I'm going to do me, because that's what's important at this point. Being on both sides has taught me one thing, that I need to be involved with me. I need to not be involved with these debates that are going on in the community, and these problems and these issues. And when I came into this community, when I came in to do my inspirational videos, I never intended that debates that have been going on for decades before my arrival were going to trickle down on top of me.
Yeah.
And being that I have the ability to say, well, look, I'll say this right now. Do I think Frank Dux is a great guy? Sure. I think Frank is an excellent person. I think he's an excellent teacher. I think that he is a great martial artist. I think that there are some speculative things about him. I think I have questions, but he's a great person. Alan Goldberg, an amazing person, responsible for giving, you know, people the ability to come together and kind of unite and go to these, you know, these conventions, and, you know, bringing martial arts together, kind of trying to unify it. I'm going to say great things about both sides, and I'm not here to say anything negative. This is what people like Don Rowley need to understand, is that's the play. That's the issue we're having, is people need to kind of just let it go. Again, I very highly doubt that Shotokan masters 200 years ago were worried about what dudes that were doing ninjutsu were doing. It didn't matter to them. They were more interested in building the self. Why should I care what somebody's doing out there? If as a true martial artist, if I'm living by that code, if I'm living by that tradition, if I'm living by everything that it was created upon, I shouldn't be out there doing these things to begin with, you know. And that's the thing, man. And that's why I'm doing me, because I know that I can actually rely on me to have that opinion outside of everybody else trying to put things in my head, telling me this is right and this is wrong. And I'm going to say this with both of my respects to Frank and Alan and everybody else. I was just invited to an event. I was just invited to go out and become a part of the Hall of Fame. And you know what? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't give me that warm feeling that I thought I should have. And bro, what's really even more interesting, and I'm not blaming anybody, I'm not out here to point fingers. When I was associating myself with Frank Dux, everybody shunned me. And the moment that I went against Frank Dux publicly, the world loved me. I started going to seminars. I had a magazine reach out to me and just do an article. I'm going to be the front cover of a martial arts magazine. Those things were not available to me when I was associated with Frank Dux. And that is crap.
I think that's unfair because in a lot of ways, look, I could see why people say he deserves to be blacklisted. So, for example, in the film world, because he sued Van Damme, which there's a lot behind the story, but just the fact that he would sue a major movie star, not good. Who's going to want to work with you? Yeah. And but the sad thing is, because he's blacklisted, if you associate or try to be fair or friendly to him, like it's sad that it trickles down on you, and then people would think negatively of you. Now, I will say this with association. And this is an example I want to give. So unfortunately, I think there are very negative people associated with Frank Dux. There's one in particular who I despise based on personal attacks against me and interactions I had. So there's a very good reason I despise this guy, but I'm not going to hold that against Frank. As much as I think that specific guy is the biggest scumbag on the planet, and I'm not the only one, but despite what I feel about that guy, and I think he's one of the worst people on this face of the earth, I'm not going to hold that against Frank. If Frank wants to be friends with him, fine. I just don't want to associate with that specific guy.
That's one thing that I really want to bring up is I don't think as martial artists, we should be worried about our associations as much as what do we have to bring to the table? Do I have a skill set? Is there something I have to offer to people out there as far as a martial art? These are the concerns we should be concerned with. We shouldn't be concerned with our associations as much. Now, I won't say that completely because I'm concerned with people that are associated with Don Roley and the Bujinkin. I won't, again, there's concerns on both sides, but I think my concern stems from the fact that he's kind of one of the main priorities and examples as to why we have so much debate and debacle in this community to begin with.
Yeah. Ultimately, Adam, like, what would you like to see happen, like, regarding Frank Dux in the martial arts community?
Here's what I want, okay? And it doesn't matter what I want because really and truthfully, nobody's going to care about my opinion because we're talking about the associations and how politically the martial arts community is never going to accept anything. So it's not going to matter what I want. But what I would say, in my opinion, is credit needs to be given when it's due. Despite your opinion about somebody, it needs to be given. I might not like a person, but I'm going to give them credit. I'll tell you this right now. I didn't like you for a long time, but I always thought you had great kicks. And I always thought to myself, you had great kicks. But you know what? This is the thing, man. Like, people need to be worried about things. Again, we're talking about such a horrible thing that you and I weren't even able to meet on good terms because of the negativities that came.
Yeah, and we never like officially knew each other. We just had interacted a little bit, and I think we'd even screamed at each other on the phone before, over like drama that it wasn't even directly related to us, but just getting embroiled in this whole thing. And the funny thing is, for whatever reason, a lot of things like when it involves Frank Dux, like there's drama that comes with it, man. And we got kind of like mixed into that too.
But this is what I want to do, and on Frank's behalf, I want to say this: I don't think anybody at this point needs to question whether or not the Senzo Tanaka person and his wife Saya Tanaka are real. Mm-hmm. I don't think at this point there's question that she indeed does have a rich samurai lineage going back hundreds of years. Those are non-debatable things, okay? And I think it's important to think about the things that I brought up today that only Frank could know it had he personally knew somebody. And let's say for a second that smoking gun where you were like, oh, what if Frank, got to this before? If that was the case, why does Frank need them so much now?
Yeah, he really does want those. And I think you should send those to him, by the way, because he always talks about them. I even asked him, hey, you get those documents yet? He's like, not yet.
I'm absolutely going to send out these documents to him. I think it's important at this point for everybody in the public to understand that, again, think whatever you want. But when things like this happen, Mandela effect or not, there's no debating it. And so you have to consider these things. So if you consider Frank to be a fraud, and I've been there, everybody's been there, you need to think about these new things, because even you can reach out right now and get this directly from National Archives, with or without getting them from me. You can get them.
I like I said, I like to entertain the idea of the Mandela effect. That way, nobody really has to be wrong, man. Like, if you call him a
I
fraud,
wish
well,
it could be
fine. You
that
know,
way,
in some
bro.
ways, you're probably right. If you call him like not a fraud, well, fine. In some ways, you're probably right.
And I wish it could be that way. To be honest with you, I'm so tired of the negativity. I'm so tired of seeing people like Don Rowley bash people live for having autism. I'm
Oh,
so
that's
so
uncalled for. See, that just like speaks of that's just very unfortunate and just speaks of somebody's character in general. See, that's taken out of like the martial arts world or whatever. Like when you're just talking about that, it's like, what's the point, man? You're literally the
and
only
here's the
thing you're
thing.
doing is making yourself look like a horrible human being.
Well, and would the people that taught Raleigh approve? How could they? He went to Japan and learned from these people. You're telling me that these people in that culture approve of that?
He's
That's
representing them. Of course, they shouldn't, and they wouldn't.
But as a representation, it doesn't give a good look to the Bujinkan. And I gotta say this right now, and I'm sure this is gonna ruffle some Bujinkan feathers. Y'all need to work on your skill sets because I don't see anything impressive.
Maybe they should train with
Sorry.
Frank Dux.
Deuce, my man.